Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom is not a Marlin. He is a Ranger, exiting the NL East, the long-term Met. No longer. What does this mean for the Marlins? I think it creates opportunities. One stud off the board from the pitching perspective. The Marlins are sitting there waiting to pull the trigger on a big-time trade. We can sense it. So what does this mean? Plus, also, what about Xander Bogaerts to the Marlins, baby? A lot of talk, well, some talk by the Lion in Texas, who seemingly does call these things out, saying that the Marlins are heavily into the shortstop market, and Xander Bogaerts. Going to cover that and the Jacob deGrom news, plus a few other news and nuggets on today's show.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins. This is your daily Marlins podcast. I, of course, am your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up on Twitter at @MiamiMarlins_UK. Hit subscribe to the pod. Why not? The episodes continue thick and fast. Actually, on that topic, from mid-December onwards, we will flex away from 5 a week to 3 a week as we go through the Christmas season and into the new year. There may be, listen, guys, if news happens, there'll always be a pod for you. But just to call out that it is likely to flex down from 5 to 3. But I will be on top of the news, of course, immediately if anything breaks. Is there a YouTube channel? Yes, there is. And you can see in the background here, we're getting festive in the Pratt household. Yes, the tree is erect. That's what I've been working on this morning. It needs a few baubles on there. But we're halfway up. The tree is up and the lights work. That is half the battle at this point. I can't take any credit for the lights working. Normally, I throw them into the bag fully tangled and just deal with it the next year. Tara, my wife, seemingly took things to a new level last year, and they were like fully wrapped, like immense wrapping. It was like coming out of a fresh set of lights out the box, like no tangled, no nothing, no broken bulbs. All go here in the Pratt household. It is 12:30 p.m. as I record this on a Saturday morning. I will post the episode almost immediately. And there's a big game going on, the World Cup for the guys across the pond into the States. Big game for the US of A in the World Cup. So looking forward to settling in for that one this afternoon. And then, of course, England play tomorrow. So looking forward to that one as well. Big couple of games, the World Cup. It's been wild in these group stages. There's been all sorts of permutations going on. Who's going through? Is it by who's at the least yellow cards, late goals, goal difference, you name it, it's happening. Germany gone, Qatar gone, Belgium gone. A lot of big teams gone. Anyway, we're here to talk about the Marlins. Well, kind of. Big news dropped. This is baseball news that dropped last night, for me anyway. I woke up this morning to the news that Jacob deGrom is no longer in the NL East. He is no longer a Met. Well, he wasn't a Met anyway. He was already a free agent. But the expectations perhaps there with deGrom return back to the Mets. And in many ways, I've always felt, and I think I've said it on this show, that if the Mets wanted to make that happen, they would have made that happen through last year. He obviously came back, got healthy again at the back end of the year. And I think if the Mets wanted to make it happen, they could have done. If deGrom wanted to make it happen, he could have done. The reports out there right now are that the Mets actually, it didn't get to a point where they had a final offer even. So I think what that says to me is deGrom wanted a change of scenery, and he gets a 5-year deal with the Texas Rangers. And I mean, for Jacob deGrom, feels like a stunning deal. Obviously, has been severely impacted in terms of the number of innings he's been able to deliver the last couple of years. So to get that 5-year deal, I mean, will that be his last deal? Who knows? The way some of these pitchers continue to go on and on and on, who knows? But massive, massive move for the Texas Rangers again. That is, in a row where they have gone out there and secured some big name free agents. Big name. And I put it on Twitter this morning. We'll talk about the pitching market and what it means for the Mets and the NL East. But for me, I only started following baseball in 2016. So I'm only 6 years in. And my head, I just can't compute this news. I can't. Because in that period, the Texas Rangers have literally been they've done nothing. They've probably had a worse record than the Marlins. I mean, they probably haven't because the Marlins have been in a full-blown rebuild in that period too. But the Texas Rangers have been so irrelevant. I can't remember barely watching a Rangers game ever. If I did, it wasn't by choice. It was probably not that good. The Texas Rangers have been terrible, yet in the last 2 off seasons, they've committed, nigh on $1 billion of contracts here across Simeon, Seager, and now deGrom. And they're still miles off. Listen, I'm not an expert in the Texas Rangers, clearly. There is, of course, Locked On Rangers. I'd recommend you go and hit up that show. They'll have it all covered. And I'm going to listen in, actually, and get the take from a Rangers side of, what's the rationale or the thinking behind this? Yes, just go and acquire an ace and pay some money. But it just blows my mind, the fact that they've committed this amount of money across 3 players. And really, they're still miles away. And if the Rangers can commit nearly $1 billion, I don't know what it is, $750 million across 3 contracts, what's stopping the Marlins spending some dough? I think we all know the answer to that. Maybe the ownership situation is different. Maybe the capital available or the investable capital or the budget is different. I think it clearly is. Clearly, they've got a new ballpark in Texas, a nice new shiny ballpark. Let's increase the payroll. Let's get bums in seats. Makes a ton of sense. Are the Rangers going to be competing next year? Gut feel is no. I mean, they've added in deGrom, but I mean, what did they win? 68 games last year? 70 games? I mean, they're still miles away. Miles away. Big, big news dropping, though. I'm intrigued. That's the other thing, is that I'm intrigued to see the way it plays out. And to be honest with you, I'm just at the heart of this whole string from my side. At the heart of it, I'm jealous. I'm jealous the fact that you have a Texas Rangers team that has been irrelevant all of the years that I followed baseball, going out there and just acquiring and adding free agent studs. We're crying out for that in Miami. We've done the hard bit. The Rangers have paid up, not just the overall value, but it's the years, right? You're taking a punt on a 5 years of deGrom. He's already 34. They're taking that punt and going and getting him because they have no pitching. They've got a couple of guys coming through in the farm, sure. But right now at the major league level, they have none. The Marlins have so much talent from a pitching perspective. They've done the hard work, the Marlins. This is the thing that frustrates me and the fan base. They've done the hard work. They've gone out there. They've drafted well. They've traded well. They've developed well. They've done everything right from a starting pitching perspective. They've done everything right. They now need to leverage that asset that they've built over time. Pay some money, get some sticks. Jazz said it on MLB Network around when the postseason was rolling along. Just need a couple of sticks, baby. I don't think he used that exact language, but that hasn't changed. Are the Marlins going to invest any dough? We're going to talk about that in a second. Before we do that, reminder this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline. And BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. I didn't check the odds. On deGrom to the Rangers, but I think it would have been relatively short. It felt like it was one of the suggested landing spots there for deGrom as the Rangers look to continue in this rebuild by throwing money at it. Anyway, you can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports. Got it all for you at betonline.net. And if you love your sports podcasts, they also have them at BetOnline. So make that maybe your second listen of the day. And then they're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, and where's it going to start for the Marlins? And deGrom to the Rangers. The parallels there are, it's just jealousy. We want the Marlins to add premier guys, premier talent. What does it mean for the Fish right now? Well, over the last couple of days, there's been, some interesting tweets knocking around. And, one of the accounts that's kind of emerging is the Lion in Texas. And he put out there about the Marlins were actively focused in on the shortstop market. I have no idea who this guy is. And if it is even a male, it could be a female. I have no idea. I have no idea who this person is. They have, when you look back at the history, they've called a few moves. Let's call it out. There's been a few times where they have been on the money. I don't know their hit rate. Is it better than Pete Pratt, 1 in 1 million? I think Craig's actually revised those numbers. I think it's 1 in 2 million now that he's revised it upwards. So yeah, my success rate is not amazing. That is true. And what about the Lion? What's his success rate? I don't know, but I'm going to try and get him on the show. We had a little bit of dialogue yesterday, so keep your eyes posted for that. I think, but I don't know again if he's, if we need to just do no video and he needs a voice, synthesizer or something, whatever the right language is there. But he was talking about the Marlins exploring the shortstop market. I think as a fan base, clearly we've been thinking about the shortstop market, and mainly because there's just so many big time free agents knocking around in the position, and it's a clear need for the Marlins, both in terms of right now, and for multiple years beyond. The question comes down, though, of where do the Marlins see Jazz Chisholm Jr. playing in the future? And I think that's where things a lot of the decision making hinges on that decision. Do they want to move Jazz back to shortstop, or are they going to persevere and continue with him at second base? There was some back and forth on Twitter on that recently, last night. The smooth Jazz Chisholm Lounge, of course, our man, big proponent of not playing in center field, that's for certain. But also, that's the adamant when he announced that he was playing for Great Britain. This is Jazz Chisholm Jr., by the way. He was playing shortstop for Great Britain. Jazz wants to be a shortstop still. And the question is do the Marlins believe that he can do it, then he can perform in that role? Because actually, once he settled into second base, he was good there. He was good. The question, again, the knock-on effect of the shift changing is how does that impact the middle infield guys? Is Jazz more valuable at second base now because there's no shifting? Is he more valuable at shortstop? Can he play shortstop? Tons of questions the Marlins need to answer, and all this funnels into where they go. Miguel Rojas in his final year, again, the Lion was talking about the Marlins were actively trying to trade away Miguel Rojas at the moment. A return expected to be relatively small, but the fact that the Marlins are considering that for a Gold Glove runner-up on a relatively cheap deal and has been a big part of the organization for many years is interesting. And I think it's fair to say if you go to Marlins Twitter and Twitter in general to get the general take on Miggy Rowe, the feeling is time is up. And part of that, there's multiple reasons as to why, but, it partly links to the way, a little bit heavy on the block feature, I think, on Twitter and the odd rant coming in. But I think for Miggy, it boils down to the offensive production. It just wasn't good last year. It wasn't good for anyone. And, I think they just need to revamp that. So what happens with Miggy Rowe, I think, remains a question. But going back to the point, the Lion put it out there. The Marlins actively exploring Xander Bogaerts. I've long been an advocate of the Carlos Correa move. Xander Bogaerts, absolutely. Trey Turner, Dansby Swanson. I don't care. Any of them would be a massive upgrade for the Marlins. However, are they going to do it? No, they're not. They're not going to do it because the value of the contract, the years, it's just not going to happen. It isn't. Craig Mish was on Twitter, I think, yesterday or the day before on some dialogue. The Marlins have been checking in with everyone. They've checked in on everyone, checking in. And the frustration continues to boil over in Marlins Twitter. Stop checking in and start pulling the trigger. But within that dialogue called out, the Marlins aren't going to look to increase payroll significantly. They obviously, or they were in on Jose Abreu. There's a lot of mixed messaging coming on here, but the Marlins are looking to upgrade. We know that. That's what Craig is saying is don't jump to conclusions now. Wait until it all plays out. They're actively exploring the trade market. They have to. But is Xander Bogaerts a possibility for the Marlins? I don't think so. Is Trey Turner? Is Dansby Swanson? Is Carlos Correa? None of those. I don't think. There's too many teams with too many needs in that area. Ones that are willing to spend the money, and there's always one or two that come out of the woodwork that you don't expect to make a big splash. Is that going to be the Marlins in 2022, 23? No, it isn't. Unfortunately, not. So let's think about things, though, in terms of the starting pitching market, because this is it now for the Fish, right? It's good. For me, deGrom off the board, great. Let's get Rodon off the board, too. Let's get Verlander off the board. Let's get these guys signed. All of a sudden, then, teams then start to run out of elite arms. They then will look to turn to plan B if indeed they were thinking free agency to add talent. All of a sudden, no free agents left. Okay, we need some studs, so we're gonna have to make some trades. So I think for the Marlins, sitting and waiting right now probably isn't the worst idea from the pitching perspective. Like, let the market play. If a few dominoes go like in quick succession, which maybe they will, bang, bang, bang. Okay, no free agents left. Right. Who's selling pitching and good pitching? Not many. There aren't. This is the thing. The Marlins hold all the aces, pardon the pun, but they do. They hold a ton. Once the free agent market dries up, the Marlins will be in a strong position. The price goes up. The price goes up, and maybe teams are willing to execute that deal. They don't want to do it right now because they're sitting on it going, well, we'd really like to keep this player or that player or this prospect or that prospect. We'd really like to keep them. So let's go and use the other way of upgrading our rotation now without losing the prospects or the major league talent right now. Let's go and try and sign a free agent. Let's go and get Carlos Rodon to add in there, give him as our ace or as our two. I mean, once that opportunity dries and goes away, teams that think their window is open. And hey, who's to say the Rangers won't be a wonderful trade partner for the Marlins? I actually have no idea what the Rangers farm system looks like. I should look into it. I will look into it. I have no idea. But as the Rangers have got deGrom, they've obviously they're trying to open their window up. I saw a tweet earlier about their rotation. The rotation's full of duds. deGrom, John Gray, Odorizzi, I think maybe. I don't know. Listen, the Rangers still need pitching. Even though they've added deGrom, they still need pitching. And maybe they need some cheaper pitching right now. All of a sudden, if the Rangers have some nice pieces to move, maybe they could be a trade partner for the Marlins. But overall, the funny thing is about the Mets and we don't know the whole situation. And maybe deGrom was just saying, hey, listen, I want to change the scenery. It's time for me to go and do something different and change my environment, which is surprising because it did feel like the Mets were kind of, they won over 100 games this year. They were trending in the right direction. It's surprising that deGrom didn't want to be, but maybe the Mets were a little bit, I don't know, maybe they just assumed they could just get any free agent they want because, the owner is probably the most wealthy owner out there. If there's a free agent to have and the Mets want him, they're going to get him. A bit like Starling Marte last year. Mets will get their guy. No, it hasn't. They've lost their race. They haven't been able to get the guy and spend their way out of it. Really intrigued to see what the Mets do now because they now have a couple of holes in their rotation. And again, this is it for the Marlins. Wait to see. There's a couple of stud pitchers ready to, that are in the free agent market. If a couple of them go early now across the winter meetings, let's say, a couple more signings happen, bang, bang. For me, the Marlins will be sitting really pretty to try and execute on some trades. Is Xander Bogaerts a possibility? No. Correa, no. The Marlins aren't going to upgrade in free agency in that way, which is, again, disappointing. As a fan of the team, when they've done the hard work, built a stunning staff. I listed it out on Twitter yesterday. There's 10 At least 10 legit studs. Frontline starters the Marlins have right now. Right now in the organization. Yes, Max Meyer is out for the year, but he'll be back. Jake Eder was out last year. He's coming back. Dax Fulton looks like a stud. Eury Perez, pretty much the best prospect in baseball. Add to that, and I even forgot Sixto Sanchez. Forgot about him. Sean Barrett called it out. Don't forget Sixto. Absolutely. Who liked that tweet? Jazz Chisholm. Jazz Chisholm liked that tweet from Sean Barrett saying, don't forget about Sixto. Jazz isn't forgetting about Sixto. So that's good to see. The Marlins have so much pitching. So much pitching. They've done all the hard work. It's time to leverage that pitching and make some deals. Let's get the free agent market cleared up. Let's put teams in a bind. Let's leverage that to get the maximum return and get the studs that the Marlins need to push this offense, at least into the middle of the pack. That's what they need to do. With that being said, I'm going to get out of here right now. Drop this before the USA game at 3 p.m. my time anyway. So I appreciate everyone making Locked On Marlins your first listen today. Happy Saturday, guys. I also need to get some baubles on this tree, so I will do that. I also need to get the mulled wine open, which I will do. And I'll look forward to being back. I think tomorrow there's going to be a Sunday episode because I missed Thursday, Friday. So likely a Sunday episode following this one on a Saturday. Until then, guys, enjoy the game today. See you tomorrow.